says starting to record.
Yeah, it's recording. We're good.
We are good. Week 5 of the NFL season. What are you thinking so far, Mossing? What are your expectations for this week?
This week, it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of game lines are going to change. A lot of teams out for COVID. It's going to be interesting to see all these lines changing. The Patriots, I was going to be on big. Even with their backup QB, I think they're just going to run through Denver. So
You know who
that's a
their
game we'll have to
going
wait
to be?
to see. Well, they still don't know if they're going to get Cam Newton back. He may have to sit out another week.
He's asymptomatic, but I don't think he's going to play this week. And then Stidham got pulled in after Hoyer got pulled out.
Stidham looked a lot better than his numbers would show. Stidham had 2 picks. He had 2 picks, one off of Edelman's hands,
Edelman
which should have been a pick. And then from there, they were down 16 points, so he was driving, and he underthrew a deep ball, which he did underthrow it. That should have been picked. But he was trying to put up points at the end. So I give him a partial pass. He didn't look great, but he didn't look as bad as Hoyer.
Honestly, this weekend, I think everyone's just going to be excited that there's football on TV and that COVID hasn't derailed the season yet. And I think we're always going to appreciate that. Thursday, we actually have a good game. The Buccaneers at the Bears. I know the past couple Thursday night games have not been fun. Who do we have last week? We had the Jets and the Broncos. And then before that,
Jags and Dolphins.
Yeah, so that was a Fitzpatrick Minshew Mania bowl that everyone had to get excited for that nobody was. And then last week, I don't think anyone was excited. Jets fans included. And then the Broncos were, who did they push out there? Jeff Driscoll?
No, not Jeff Driscoll. Ripken.
Yeah, the Boise State guy. He looked promising there until the end. And he threw that pick 6, and the Jets almost won a game. That was probably their best chance all year. But finally, this Thursday,
they stumble into a win just yet. They still haven't fired days.
We have a game, and more importantly, we have a spread currently listed at Tampa Bay -4. Your thoughts, Mossing?
So I've been off the Bucs all year, and it's burned me all year. I haven't believed in Tom Brady, but the Bucs defense is for real. Tom Brady looks like he's coming back to life again. He can still throw a great game, as we saw last weekend. The Bears, I think their offense is just trash, whether they have Trubisky in there or Foles. So I'm going to take the Bucs -4, and I think the Bucs win by 10.
You're taking the points there, huh? Here's the thing. It's in Chicago, and this year, I know with COVID and attendance, home field advantage isn't what it usually is, especially in Chicago there at Soldier Field. It is a night game. It's going to get a little cold. We're talking about Chicago's defense the past couple of years, but the truth is it's not what it was. Khalil Mack has been a little dinged up this year. Their defense, there's only so much they can do when their offense puts them in bad spots all game. I'm also going to take the points with Tampa. I think there's way too much speculation about Brady and those pick 6s. He's ready to go. They do have some injury concerns. Godwin is out. Scotty Miller is also dinged up. That slot receiver that everyone thinks is going to be the next Wes Welker, Julian Edelman. But it's going to be tough for me to bet against Tom Brady, especially when it's only 4 points against this Chicago Bears offense.
Side note, interesting possible prop bet is any Gronkowski bet. Gronk's going to be the healthy tight end. A lot of Brady's wide receivers are going to be out.
O.J. Howard's hurt.
Might be something to look out for. I'm not locking it in, but just something to put on the radar.
I think this game's going to start out a little slow on both sides, and we're going to think, oh, Chicago's in it. Chicago's in it. Third quarter, I see Tampa Bay pulling away, and then we're all going to be hoping for a backdoor cover if you're Chicago better, and if we're Tampa, we're going to be a little scared, but I just don't see Chicago putting up enough points. This Tampa Bay defense is solid, but I think we're both on the same side here. Tampa Bay -4 in that game. All right, next up, we got Carolina. Carolina against Atlanta. Carolina's been a bit of a surprise the last couple of weeks. I think me especially very low on Carolina. Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, and I'm even more low on him. But what do they do but win the last 2 games in convincing fashion? What are your thoughts?
The Panthers' defense has been trash the past year, 2, 3, maybe, and it looks like they're starting to figure something out. I don't know how they're putting up better numbers with Mike Davis in the backfield, but somehow they're winning games.
Yeah, I mean, it could
Atlanta,
just be more familiarity. I don't know. It's been a
yeah,
couple weeks, figuring those kinks out.
Atlanta has a lot of people hurt. Their wide receiver core has been decimated with Calvin Ridley maybe out, Julio maybe out. They gave the ball like 10 targets to Zacchaeus. Don't
Yeah,
even know who
was
that
that
guy
number
is.
17?
I think so.
I had no idea who he was, but I was trying to look at him on waivers for my fantasy team. He was wrapping up those receptions.
Mm-hmm. But I just don't believe in the Panthers to keep it up. I would stay away from this game, but if I had to pick, I would go Falcons -1.
Yeah, this is not a game I would want to bet either. Here's the thing. Atlanta, you see those names. You see Matt Ryan. You see Julio Jones. You see Calvin Ridley, who's one of the best wide receivers in the game now. Best route runner, I think, in the game. And they got Todd Gurley. They have all these sexy names on offense. Defense is miserable. They have injuries all over the place, and the guys who were there originally weren't that good to begin with. And you have that against a Carolina team that, like I said, I was very down on. Rookie coach. Teddy Bridgewater, here's the thing with Teddy Bridgewater. He's not going to win you a game. But he's definitely not going to lose you a game either. And sometimes in a game like this against an Atlanta defense that's so porous and just so overwhelmed at key injury spots, I don't know. If I had to pick, I would go Carolina here. Just, a team with momentum, a team with things that have been working out. I'd rather go with a team like that than a team like Atlanta that's just reeling and doesn't really know which way to go. But I agree with you. I'm staying away from this game, but I'll go Carolina +1 in that early window. All right, the next game. This is going to be a stinker, I can already tell. The Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Bill O'Brien-less Houston Texans. What are we thinking here? Currently, we got the spread at the Houston Texans -6. I'm a little surprised at that. Your thoughts, Mawson?
So the one thing I think the Texans have working in their favor is it seems like every time there's a midseason coaching adjustment, the players start to play harder for a game or two. It seems like there's something that sparks in them. So I think that would help out the Texans. They have the talent there. Deshaun Watson has been playing well this year. Against the Jags, I think he starts to turn it around. I mean, Miami torched this defense. Absolutely torched the Jags with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Did you hear that story today that came out about J.J. Watt?
No.
Apparently, a couple of days ago at practice, J.J. Watt and Bill O'Brien got in like a shouting match argument over his coaching abilities, and that was kind of the crumbles that started his eventual demise there. And it was just funny because Bill O'Brien, he was the GM, he was the head coach, he was the offensive coordinator, and I think last week he said that he was going to take over play calling duties. And now, for those who might not know how this kind of works, this subliminal message that head coaches do sometimes. Whenever a head coach, whether he's offensive or defense, whenever they start taking control of play calling, that typically means they're throwing that defensive or offensive coordinator underneath the bus, saying, hey, I know we've been struggling. It was his fault. It wasn't mine. I'm the head coach, but I guess I'll take the responsibility. I'll start calling the plays. Obviously, that did not work. He already traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson, and I think everyone knew what that did. The Cardinals are one of the sexier, more explosive offenses in the league. Houston with Deshaun Watson, who everyone knows is at least a top 5 talent quarterback in the NFL, started 0-4, and I know their schedule has been rough. They started with Kansas City, went to Baltimore, and things didn't get easier after that either with the Steelers, but there's just no excuse anymore for this team and underperforming year after year, and Bill O'Brien's finally gone, but 6 points is a lot, and I don't see them covering. I just don't. Their defense is bad. Gardner Minshew is just enough, I think, to keep it close. He's had success against his Houston team, and I think the confusion with not only COVID but this coaching mix-up is going to be enough for Gardner to sneak in the back door. I'll take Jacksonville +6. Again, I'm staying away from this. It's not one of my locks for the week, but I feel a little bit more comfortable with that. Any final thoughts on that game, Moss?
I would side Jacksonville too, but Texans, they just got so much talent. It's
They have
hard to
so
bet
much.
against them,
Well, again, it's kind of
which
like the
is why
Falcons.
I would stay away.
It's kind of like the Falcons. They have the names there, and you when you're just thinking about it from a fantasy football perspective, or just like a casual fan, you're like, they got Deshaun Watson. In this league, in the current state, if you have a good quarterback, you're gonna stay in games.
They have the highest paid roster in the NFL. They pay the
oh,
people the most money in the NFL, and they're 0-4.
yeah, it's just ridiculous. That's just bad GM work, which
But,
was Bill O'Brien.
yeah,
He wants to admit it.
he was a terrible GM. A head coach, he probably wavered between average to bad. I won't completely kill him as a head coach, but his GM was just unacceptable.
I mean, here's the thing. This is another example of a Bill Belichick coaching tree guy who just hasn't worked out. Everyone goes and works under Bill Belichick. They get hired somewhere else. People are expecting the same results, and he just can't. The way he works, somehow or another, is just unique to that situation and that organization in New England. And until some coach underneath him can have success elsewhere, I just don't see that perception changing. We have Eric Mangini fail as a coach for the Browns and Jets. Josh McDaniels, who left and had to come back as offensive coordinator because that didn't work out. And then you got Bill O'Brien. Not to mention countless of other guys that I don't know. It just doesn't work. And it's interesting because coaching trees have been a big talking point, especially with Andy Reid and his coaching tree. But it doesn't work for Bill Belichick, and that's just kind of how it goes. Let's move on to another stinker, but I think it has a chance to be an upset alert. We got the Rams at the Washington football team. Currently, the Rams are a road dog by 7.5 points. That's a lot of points to lay down. What are your initial thoughts here on this game, Moss?
My initial thoughts are Washington's going through a QB change. I don't think there was any animosity towards Haskins like some other quarterbacks, so I don't think it's really going to spark the team to play harder like it does in some quarterback switches.
I agree.
I think they're just a bad team. If anything, I think Terry McLaurin had such a good relationship going back to Ohio State with Haskins that he was performing well. So seeing him benched may kind of hurt his psyche too and kind of just hurt the team overall. I get it. They're still playing for Ron Rivera, but I think the kind of play hard effect is starting to lose lose the way it's helping them. Because
I agree.
Every week.
I think initially it was like, oh, Ron Rivera's in. He's an established coach. He went to a Super Bowl. He knows his stuff. He's definitely an upgrade than what they had last year. And the just dysfunction of that organization. He kind of brings that structure, that discipline to the team. But the thing is, in the NFL, once you get those losses, it's hard to keep that motivation up. Even for a new coach, even as a coach well-respected like Ron Rivera is. And I know a lot of people are thinking they cut Haskins loose a little too early. And I think they might be right. Kyle Allen hasn't showed much in his career that he has more potential than Haskins, but he did have some success last year in Carolina, which is where Ron Rivera was. So it makes sense he's kind of going to his guy. What was surprising was Haskins was actually named the third QB in that depth chart. Alex Smith gets the nod as second string. I don't know. I've seen Alex Smith's, that injury was tough. That comeback is very inspirational, and it's great to see. But I'm kind of nervous about seeing him on a football field in a real competition there. They had a lot of problems. Chase Young isn't one of them. That defensive line is nasty.
Chase Young going to be back in this week, though.
Yeah, their defense is good. Jacksonville and Washington, here's the thing. Jacksonville, I think they're both teams that people thought weren't going to be good this year. They were really bad last year. Jacksonville's offense is pretty good, and I think that's going to prevent them from being at the cellar of the league. And I think Washington's defense is good enough to prevent them from being in the running for a Trevor Lawrence or a top even 2 pick. Their defense is good. And their offense with Terry McLaurin, they got some key weapons. It's just tough in a new system and a quarterback who just isn't comfortable behind the offensive line.
So I read a report that said they didn't move off Haskins because they didn't think he was capable, but rather because Kyle Allen knew the system better. Because Kyle Allen was with Rivera in Carolina. So it's more of a comfortability thing. So I don't know if they cut him loose, but I think they're just moving off him for the time being. So I'd watch out for Haskins starting maybe week 8 or 10, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think once Washington gets kind of eliminated from any playoff hopes, they might dabble with Haskins, Smith, whoever, just to get a feel for next year because they have some difficult decisions coming up.
They might dabble with Smith, kind of put him out there as some trade bait, try to get some pieces. But
yeah, I'm with you. And then on the Rams side, they've been I think we forgot last year how good Sean McVay is and how good this Rams team is. You have Jared Goff. He's the number 1 overall quarterback. And I know that gets lost because the success of Wentz had, and we know he hasn't been too great recently. We'll get into that later. And then with the success of Dak Prescott in that same draft class, I think people forgot that Jared Goff, coming out of college, was known to be one of the better prospects we've seen. In year 2 in that system with McVay, he went to the Super Bowl, and he's just been a great player. And I think more than that, if you look at the way and the depth of the throws he's been doing in that offense, they're a little short, they're little screens, but with that talent and roster they have, it fits perfectly with Sean McVay's scheme. And on the other side of the ball, you got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, the 2 best players at their position. This team is nasty. This team is damn good, and they should be undefeated. They got kind of hosed in the Buffalo Bills game with that PI call, but they could be undefeated, and they have some key wins against some talented teams. That AFC West is just stacked. 7.5 points here. I think the Rams take this pretty easy. They did struggle last week against the Giants, but I think they take that, they'll learn from it, and they come out swinging against Washington, and I think this is over before halftime.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of a wake-up call for them. I think they're going to play a really clean game. I think they're going to just rush it down kind of Washington's throat and keep pounding the ball, which may not work in the first quarter. So I think the first quarter will be kind of slow scoring, but I think over time they're going to wear down the Washington football team and kind of break their will over the entire course of the game, and I think they'll win by 14.
Yeah, I can see this being a 14, a 17-point game. I'd be surprised if Washington stays in it, mostly because the Rams are going to put up points. We know this, and I just don't think Kyle Allen's going to be willing enough to take those deep shots his first start back in a year or so. I just don't see that happening. I like the Rams here. Next game, we talked about Wentz. Well, this is a good old Pennsylvania matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers at Heinz Field. Currently, the spread is at Steelers -7. That's a pretty fair spread. I'm not sure which way I'm leaning, but let's talk this through. On one side, you have Philadelphia. Philadelphia has struggled this year, to say the least. They really needed that win last week against the 49ers, and to be honest, I don't think they really won. Nick Mullins kind of gave that game up. They're in prime position to win, and there's 2 key plays there. On the first drive, he missed the fullback, Jusek, is that how you say it? He missed on that wheel route that would have been a walk-in touchdown, and then he throws that pick 6 to kind of cost them the game, and there's only so much C.J. Beathard could do in relief. So I really don't think they won that game. That does not impress me, and that does not make me think they're going to turn this season around at all. What do you think about the Philadelphia Eagles?
So I saw Carson Wentz actually finally make some good plays, but once again, I don't think he looked sharp throughout the whole game. And the people he's thrown to are not very good. A lot of them are all practice squad people. Everybody on that team seems to get hurt.
They have one healthy wide receiver, right, and that's Greg Ward, a former college quarterback. This is his second year playing the wide receiver position. It's really rough.
So between that and then also the Steelers' defense, which is legit, the Steelers' defense is going to lay it on Philly, I think. I think